We are anonymous. We exist in the shadows where truth hides, where questions go unanswered, where silence becomes complicit. Tonight, we bring you a story that demands attention, not because of what we know for certain, but because of what remains unexplained. On a quiet coastal morning in South Carolina, fire consumed the home of a circuit court judge and a former state senator. What began as an ordinary day ended in flames, injuries, and investigations that continue as we speak. Edisto Beach, South Carolina. A barrier island community known for its peaceful stretches of sand, family vacations, and the kind of quiet that makes people forget the chaos of the outside world. Population just over 600 permanent residents, swelling to thousands during summer months. It's the kind of place where neighbors know each other, where the loudest sound is typically the Atlantic Ocean meeting the shore. But on this particular day, that tranquility shattered in an instant. The home belonged to Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein and her husband, Arnold Goodstein, a former Democratic state senator who served South Carolina for years. Their three-story beachfront property stood as one of the more prominent residences on the island, valued in the millions, positioned with direct ocean views. Arnold Goodstein, 79 years old, had built a career in public service spanning decades. He fought for education reform, civil rights initiatives, and represented his constituents through multiple terms in the state legislature. Judge Diane Goodstein presided over the Ninth Judicial Circuit, handling cases that shaped lives and tested the application of law in complex situations. The explosion occurred without warning. Witnesses across the island reported hearing a sound so powerful it didn't register as anything familiar. Not a car backfiring, not thunder, not construction. One neighbor described it as feeling the ground shake beneath their feet, a vibration that moved through the earth and into their chest. Another said they thought a vehicle had crashed into a house, maybe a gas line had ruptured somewhere in the neighborhood. The reality proved far more devastating. Within seconds of that initial blast, flames erupted through the structure. The fire didn't spread gradually, it consumed. Black smoke poured upward, visible from miles away, a dark column against the blue coastal sky. The peaceful sounds of seabirds and waves disappeared under the roar of fire, the cracking of wood, the shattering of glass. Neighbors emerged from their homes, some running toward the smoke, others grabbing phones to call emergency services, many simply frozen in shock at the speed and intensity of what they witnessed. Inside the home, Arnold Goodstein faced a nightmare scenario. The 79-year-old found himself trapped as fire blocked traditional exits. Smoke filled rooms rapidly, reducing visibility, making breathing difficult, turning familiar spaces into deadly mazes. Every second counted, every decision carried life or death weight. With escape routes cut off by flames, Arnold made a desperate choice. He jumped from the first floor into the marsh behind the property. The fall broke both his legs, shattered his hips, fractured bones in his feet. The injuries were severe, the pain immediate and overwhelming. But that leap saved his life. Judge Diane Goodstein was not home when the explosion occurred. She had taken their dogs for a morning walk, a routine part of their daily life on the island. As she walked, she saw smoke rising in the distance. Something told her it was close, too close. When she realized the smoke was coming from the direction of their home, she ran. What she found when she arrived was devastation. The house she had lived in, the space filled with decades of memories, photographs, belongings that marked a lifetime together, was being destroyed before her eyes. Firefighters were already working to control the blaze, but the intensity of the fire made saving the structure impossible. Neighbors and emergency responders acted quickly. Some came by street, others launched kayaks and paddleboards to reach the marsh side of the property where Arnold had fallen. They pulled him from the water and mud, working together to get him to safety despite his severe injuries. 2 others were also in the home at the time of the explosion. One victim required airlift transport to the Medical University of South Carolina, indicating critical injuries requiring specialized trauma care. 2 others went by ambulance to local hospitals. The full extent of their injuries has not been publicly disclosed, and their conditions remain uncertain. The response from Charleston County Fire Department, Edisto Beach, Public Safety, and multiple mutual aid companies was immediate. Firefighters battled the blaze for hours, working to prevent it from spreading to neighboring properties, while the intense heat made approaching the structure extremely dangerous. The 3-story home eventually collapsed under the damage, leaving only burned framework and rubble. The investigation began before the embers cooled. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division took control of the investigation, a significant step that indicates the fire is being treated as suspicious. SLED, as the agency is commonly known, handles major crimes, public corruption cases, and incidents requiring resources beyond local departments. Their involvement signals that authorities are not treating this as a simple accident. Fire investigators examine patterns of burn damage, points of origin, accelerant presence, structural failures, and dozens of other factors that reveal how a fire started and spread. When those patterns don't match accidental causes, when evidence suggests intentional ignition, the investigation shifts from fire marshal territory to criminal investigation. The term arson carries specific legal meaning. It requires proof that a fire was set deliberately, with intent to destroy property or cause harm. Investigators have not publicly confirmed arson, but the suspicious nature designation means they are pursuing that possibility seriously. Gas leaks, electrical failures, appliance malfunctions, these accidental causes leave distinct evidence patterns. So does intentional fire setting. The difference lies in details that trained investigators can identify through careful examination of the scene. What makes this incident particularly concerning extends beyond the immediate facts of the fire itself. Judge Diane Goodstein and Arnold Goodstein are not private citizens living quiet, retired lives. They are public figures who have made decisions, cast votes, and handed down rulings that affected thousands of people. Judge Goodstein's position on the circuit court bench means she has presided over criminal cases, civil disputes, family court matters, and other proceedings where her judgments carried real consequences. Arnold Goodstein's legislative record includes votes on contentious issues, support for policies that drew both praise and criticism, and a political identity clearly aligned with Democratic Party values in a state with complex political dynamics. The current political climate in America has seen a documented rise in threats against public officials, judges, prosecutors, election workers, and others involved in government and legal processes. The United States Marshals Service reported a 300% increase in threats against federal judges over a 2-year period. State and local officials have experienced similar trends. Election administrators have resigned after receiving death threats. Poll workers have quit after facing harassment. Prosecutors handling politically sensitive cases have required security details. The normalization of violent rhetoric in political discourse has created an environment where threats that once would have been rare and shocking have become disturbingly common. Several recent incidents illustrate this pattern. Democratic Party offices in multiple states have been vandalized, windows smashed, threatening messages left behind. The home of a Pennsylvania official was targeted in what authorities investigated as potential arson. Judges presiding over cases involving politically connected defendants have received threatening communications. Prosecutors have found themselves subjects of coordinated harassment campaigns on social media and through direct contact. These are not isolated incidents scattered randomly across decades. They represent a concentrated pattern within a compressed time frame. Whether the Goodstein home explosion connects to this broader pattern remains an open question that investigators must answer through evidence, not assumption. But the context cannot be ignored. When a sitting judge's home explodes under suspicious circumstances, when that judge and her husband have decades of public service and clear political affiliations, when the explosion occurs during a period of heightened political tension and documented increases in threats against public officials, the question of motive naturally arises. Political violence represents one of the most dangerous threats to democratic systems. When individuals or groups attempt to influence policy, prevent legal proceedings, or punish public officials through violence or intimidation, they attack not just individuals, but the fundamental processes that allow diverse societies to function without descending into chaos. Courts exist to resolve disputes through law rather than force. Elections exist to transfer power through votes rather than violence. When these systems are targeted, when judges fear for their safety, when legislators require armed security at their homes, democracy itself becomes the casualty. The investigation into the Goodstein home explosion continues. SLED investigators are examining physical evidence from the scene, interviewing witnesses, reviewing security footage from the area, and pursuing leads that have not been made public. Fire investigation is painstaking work requiring expertise in chemistry, engineering, building construction, and criminal behavior. Determining whether a fire was accidental or intentional can take weeks or months. Identifying who set a fire, if it was indeed arson, requires even more extensive investigation, potentially involving forensic evidence, digital records, witness testimony, and surveillance. Arnold Goodstein remains hospitalized, recovering from the severe injuries sustained in his escape from the burning home. At 79, the broken bones and trauma carry serious implications for long-term mobility and quality of life. The physical recovery will be lengthy and challenging. The psychological impact of experiencing such a terrifying event, of losing a home and all its contents, of facing the possibility that someone may have intentionally caused this destruction, adds another layer of trauma that extends beyond physical healing. Judge Diane Goodstein has lost her home but continues her work on the bench. The destruction of personal property, regardless of how devastating, does not remove the responsibilities of her judicial position. Cases continue, hearings must be held, decisions must be made. The resilience required to maintain professional duties while processing personal trauma and supporting an injured spouse demonstrates the kind of commitment to public service that defines many who choose careers in law and government. The Edisto Beach community has rallied around the Goodsteins, offering support, assistance, and solidarity. In small communities, disasters affect everyone. Neighbors who witnessed the explosion, who helped in the rescue, who watched the home burn, carry their own trauma from the event. The sense of safety that defines island life has been shaken. Questions linger. Could this happen again? Are others at risk? What does this mean for the community's future? The broader implications extend to how society addresses threats against public officials. If investigations confirm this was arson, if evidence emerges linking the fire to the Goodsteins' public roles, it will represent another escalation in a dangerous trend. Each successful attack, each instance where violence accomplishes its goal of harm or intimidation, encourages others who see violence as an acceptable tool for political expression. Conversely, thorough investigation, identification, and prosecution of those responsible, and clear societal rejection of such tactics can help reverse these trends. The challenge lies in balancing security with openness. Democratic systems require that public officials remain accessible to the people they serve. Judges cannot retreat into fortified bunkers and still maintain the public trust necessary for their rulings to carry legitimacy. Legislators cannot completely separate themselves from constituents and still effectively represent community interests. But accessibility creates vulnerability, and that vulnerability becomes dangerous when political rhetoric normalizes violence and dehumanizes those in public service. Some argue that heated political rhetoric is simply passionate speech protected by the First Amendment, that strong language about opponents represents democratic discourse, not dangerous incitement. Others point to the documented correlation between inflammatory rhetoric and actual violence, arguing that public figures bear responsibility for the foreseeable consequences of their words. This debate continues in legal, academic, and public forums. What remains undebatable is the statistical reality. Threats and violence against public officials have increased dramatically, and that increase correlates with specific shifts in political communication. The Goodstein case will be resolved through investigation and, if evidence warrants, prosecution. Whatever the outcome, it has already added to the growing record of incidents that demand serious examination of how American political culture has evolved and where current trajectories lead. The question is not whether people can disagree, even intensely, about policy, judicial decisions, or political direction. Disagreement is essential to functional democracy. The question is whether that disagreement remains within bounds that preserve the possibility of coexistence, or whether it crosses into territory where violence becomes normalized as political expression. As this investigation continues, other stories will dominate news cycles. Other crises will emerge, other controversies will spark outrage, other events will compete for public attention. This is how patterns become invisible. how individual incidents get forgotten before they can be connected into larger narratives. The explosion at a judge's home becomes just another story, scrolled past on the way to the next headline. But these stories matter precisely because they reveal patterns that individual incidents obscure. We watch because others look away. We remember because forgetting serves those who benefit from chaos. We connect dots because the full picture emerges only when scattered points are properly mapped. This fire may be investigated and resolved. The Goodsteins may recover and rebuild. Justice may or may not be served depending on what evidence reveals and how systems respond. But this moment, this incident, this intersection of public service and suspicious destruction represents something larger than one family's tragedy. Democracy requires faith that disagreement will not lead to destruction, that losing an argument or a court case or an election will not result in personal harm, that the systems designed to resolve conflict peacefully will function. Every time that faith is tested through violence or intimidation, the foundation weakens. Enough cracks, enough failures, enough moments where violence achieves its goals, and the entire structure becomes unstable. The investigation will reveal what the investigation reveals. Evidence will tell the story that evidence tells. But regardless of specific findings in this case, the context remains. Public officials face unprecedented threats. Political violence has been increasingly normalized. The systems designed to protect democratic processes are under strain. These are facts independent of any single incident, patterns confirmed by data from law enforcement agencies, security services, and academic researchers studying political violence. We present this information not to inflame, but to inform, not to assume guilt, but to demand accountability, not to create fear, but to counter complacency. The truth serves no agenda except its own revelation. What happened at Edisto Beach happened. A home exploded and burned. People were injured. A judge and her husband lost everything they owned. Investigators are treating it as suspicious. These are facts. What they mean, what they connect to, what they reveal about larger patterns, these are questions that demand serious examination rather than quick dismissal. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Wait for us.